All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we are building a unified, totally data-backed framework for thriving in our modern world. We're going to look at the hard science of success, stripping away the myths and zeroing in on what actually works.
You might think trusting your gut is the ultimate key to success. I mean, we hear it all the time, right? Just follow your instincts. Well, it turns out the data reveals our intuition is actually remarkably flawed. When we rely solely on that gut feeling, we are literally falling prey to hidden biases and cognitive shortcuts that can lead us way off track in our careers, our relationships, and our problem solving.
So, to reconstruct our understanding of success, we are going to take a journey from the micro level of our own biases all the way up to the macro level of global societies. We will cover 1. Defying your own instincts. 2. Unlocking your hidden potential. 3. Engineering high-performing teams. 4. Navigating the data age. And 5. Why societies actually succeed.
Okay, part 1. Defying your own instincts. Let's look at the micro-level biases and the invisible forces that are driving our everyday choices.
Think about this massive number, 70%. Alexander Todorov's research proves that people can actually predict the winner of a political race 70% of the time based on absolutely nothing more than a 1-second glance at a candidate's face. Crazy, right? We like to think we're making these highly rational choices based on policy or merit, but our brains are actually making snap judgments about perceived competence in literally a single second. Our gut is essentially tricking us. And that brings us to debunking the myth of innate childhood creativity. We all love the idea that kids just have this boundless, magical imagination and that we somehow lose it as adults. But researcher Andrew Stolman proves that children actually tend to imitate much more than they innovate. It turns out true innovation requires a foundation of learned principles, examples, and models. So imagination isn't some superpower you just lose as an adult. It is a buildable skill that depends entirely on your knowledge base. So if we can't completely trust our gut, and our imagination actually needs structure, what exactly do we do? Well, we should adopt these steps from the art of super forecasting. Instead of thinking in absolute certainties like a hard yes or no, we need to teach ourselves to think in percentages. Break those massive problems down into bite-sized pieces, track your past predictions to see exactly where your blind spots are, and practice what's called Bayesian updating, which really just means instantly revising your beliefs the absolute second new credible data comes in. Don't cling to old ideas. Update your mental software. That is how you make vastly superior decisions.
Moving right along to part 2, unlocking your hidden potential. It is time to unlock your power.
As economist Scott Shane discovered, your DNA plays a massive, measurable role in your vocational interests. Check this out. The variance in people's interest in the creative arts is 74% genetically influenced. For physical science, it's 68%. You aren't just a blank slate. Understanding your own biological wiring gives you a huge strategic advantage to choose a path where you are naturally built to thrive. But hey, genetics definitely aren't everything. Your environment and society play a massive role too. As Daniela Pierre-Bravo details in her book, The Other, women of color, minorities, and immigrants often face what are called limiting beliefs. Basically, to achieve psychological safety in environments where they feel like outsiders, they often adopt survival strategies. Things like keeping their heads down and working twice as hard just to fit in. But while those strategies might help you survive the day-to-day, they can ultimately hold you back from stepping into leadership and wielding real power. So the really crucial takeaway here is this. True belonging never, ever comes from shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's mold. It comes from confidently owning your unique experiences and perspectives. When you stop trying to seamlessly blend in and instead start leveraging your diverse background as a unique asset, you unlock a level of authentic leadership that conformity could simply never achieve. All right, part 3. Engineering high-performing teams. Now we're moving up to the meso level, kind of the middle ground, to see exactly how these diverse, complex individuals come together to form truly great teams. The book Good Team, Bad Team shows us that engineered cognitive diversity is the real secret to high performance. You essentially need a mix of these 4 distinct thinking styles working in perfect harmony. Think about it. If you only have implementers, you'll act incredibly fast, but you might just run straight off a cliff. If you only have clarifiers, you're going to analyze the problem forever without ever actually taking action. You absolutely need ideators to generate those outside-the-box concepts and developers to build the effective, detailed plans. A truly great leader creates an environment where these 4 profiles trust each other rather than just endlessly frustrating each other.
And when that diverse team inevitably hits a crisis, how do they actually survive? Well, to thrive amidst chaos, Max McCone's concept of super adaptability suggests treating team action kind of like a recursive dance loop, specifically a foxtrot. Beats 1 and 2 are all about deliberate slowness, gathering information and building strength. Then, beats 3 and 4, a sudden burst of speed to make a bold move and adjustment flight. Finally, beat 5, a return to slowness to stabilize and embed what you've learned. It's really not about constantly rushing. It's all about finding that rhythm.
Ultimately, leadership is not just some mystical art you're either born with or you aren't. It is a systematic science. Whether you're using something like the Eisenhower Matrix or setting massive, big goals, effective management means moving way past zero-sum thinking. It's about systematically targeting your employees' actual needs, providing regular, actionable feedback, and promoting genuine well-being. Apply this science and I guarantee productivity soars. Let's zoom out. Part 4, Navigating the Data Age. We really need to understand the invisible technological systems shaping our modern society.
Wendy H. Wong's research warns that we generate a staggering 1 million terabytes of data daily. That is an almost incomprehensible amount of information. Right now, big tech largely treats us as passive data subjects, basically just raw material waiting to be harvested. But we have to demand a shift. We need to start viewing ourselves as data stakeholders, empowered individuals actively advocating for our digital human rights to protect our dignity, our autonomy, and incredibly, even our posthumous data. Yeah, the digital footprint we leave behind even after we're gone.
This quote perfectly reminds us that the technologies actively tracking us, things like facial recognition and predictive AI, are absolutely not inherently neutral. They are built by people and they carry all of our human biases. Because data is sticky, meaning it is nearly impossible to scrub from the internet once it's out there, we desperately require strict ethical guardrails. We have to ensure these algorithms aren't being used to marginalize or unfairly surveil populations.
But by embracing these key principles from technologists like Bernard Marr and Jim Fritterman, we really can flip the script. If we treat data literacy as a fundamental human right, we empower everyday people. With the proper checks and balances on big tech, we can absolutely use tools like generative AI to democratize things like education and healthcare. The goal is ensuring digital innovations serve humanity collectively, rather than just padding corporate profits.
Finally, Part 5, Why Societies Actually Succeed. Let's look at the ultimate macro structure.
In their objectively groundbreaking work, Why Nations Fail, economists Acemoglu and Robinson clearly map out a core difference in societal success. The breakdown shows that inclusive institutions encourage broad participation, they protect property rights, and they provide equal access to opportunities like education and healthcare. Extractive institutions, on the flip side, concentrate power in the hands of a few to exploit labor and resources. The data clearly shows this distinction is the primary driver of why some countries experience sustained, long-term prosperity while others suffer from systemic economic stagnation and poverty.
And history repeatedly demonstrates this exact dynamic. Looking at the post-industrial revolution United States or modern South Korea, with its huge focus on tech and education, we see that when systems distribute knowledge and power broadly, innovation simply flourishes. People invent and build because they know they will actually benefit from their hard work. Whereas systems designed specifically to extract wealth for a select elite, like the historical Spanish colonial empire or the political isolation of modern North Korea, inevitably stifle progress and lead to long-term stagnation.
And honestly, this completely mirrors the modern corporate shift towards sustainable performance. Businesses and nations alike are facing a binary choice right now. We can try to survive merely through bare minimum compliance, holding on to outdated extraction practices, or we can truly thrive by abandoning those models and integrating long-term inclusivity, core values, and environmental sustainability right into our foundations. We have to make courageous choices, especially regarding the climate crisis. We have scaled all the way from the microscopic genes in your DNA, through the psychology of your everyday decisions, right up to the massive data structures and economic institutions of global empires. The patterns of success are incredibly clear. So the only question left for us is, knowing the data, what old assumptions will you leave behind today to engineer a more inclusive, adaptable, and successful future for yourself? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really challenge you to put these insights into action.